Welcome to episode 2 of Alex's Asylum with ideas so crazy they just might set you free. Joining me is a very special guest, entrepreneur and professional bodybuilder, Marc Lobliner.
Hey, what's going on?
How we doing, man? Marc, you're one of the most high energy people that I have ever been around. You're obviously successful in the fitness space, bodybuilding space. Would love to share with my audience, who's smaller than your audience on YouTube, but would love for you to share with them what drives you. How do you have so much energy to go about doing what you're doing every day?
Well, we only get one go around at this, right? As far as we know, reincarnation is kind of far-fetched. So the whole thing is you're on this earth once. So how can you optimize your brain and your body to be able to sustain a full day and still want to get up the next day and do even better? So when you look at your body, you look at your mind, it's a whole. If your mind is not right, your body won't be right. If your body's not right, your mind won't be right. It works together. And as we know, a lot of things that go on originate in your gut microbiome, originate in the way your body pumps blood. Do you really think you're going to be optimal if you have high blood pressure? Do you really think you're going to be optimal if you're out of breath walking up a flight of stairs? Do you really think you'll be optimal if you're sitting down and your hips are tight? No, you're not. So if you've ever had a sore back or an injury and you've tried to do focused work, you know that it's not possible. When I have an injury or I have an ouchie, I just can't get as much work done. But when my body is just operating, when I'm going and I'm getting the training in and I'm getting everything in, my nutrition's on point, I notice that my entire life is better. So yes. I'm driven by success. I'm driven by not being mediocre, and I'm driven by being better every single day and leaving a legacy for my children.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think, you're in your 40s, I'm in my 30s, and optimizing how our body feels for performance or cognitive performance becomes more obvious as we get older and we have more bad days than when we were younger. But what sort of flip the switch for you? Because that's a perspective, that's an adult perspective. That's not a perspective that you probably had when you were 19 years old, though I would imagine you were probably wired very similarly at 19 years old. So what's the first principles for Marc Lobliner? How did you even get to the place where you realized that your physical health was of primary importance for your productivity?
Have you ever watched someone die?
I have not, fortunately.
Have you ever watched someone die slowly? I'm talking over years. I'm talking through neglect, through drug abuse, through diabetes. That was my childhood. My mom, drug addict. My father, type 2 diabetes. Watch my father slowly get worse and worse and worse, and not heeding the advice from his doctors or from us or from anybody, and literally eating himself to death. And then I saw my mom succumb to habits that changed everything about our lives, about who we are, about what we did, turned us from an upper middle class family into a family that was broken. So I got to see the depths of what bad habits can do. So my brother and myself, my brother is very successful, maybe even more successful than me. And my brother and I both went the exact opposite. My brother as well, he's a natural pro bodybuilder. He was an IFBB pro. He hasn't competed in a long time. He's 48 years old now. Actually, in October, I just aged him a little bit. But so we decided independently that is not what we want for ourselves. That is not what we want for our families. And so we ran as far away from it as possible. And not only running away from it and dedicating my life to health and fitness and helping people reach their goals, but as well as making sure that my family, we're all going to face adversity. Our adversities are different. Some people's adversity is having too much good stuff where they don't actually have real adversity. And I see that a lot in Brentwood, Tennessee. You've been here, you know what it's like.
Yeah.
So, dude, somebody messes up your Starbucks order, it's the end of the world out here. Whereas if you're in the inner city, if you get shot, that's a bad day. If you don't get shot, that's a good day. So there's degrees of adversity, but nonetheless, we all handle adversity. So I'd rather my kids deal with Starbucks than have to deal with what I had to deal with, or have to deal with what a lot of people who make bad decisions have to deal with. And so, to have a family, to have that nuclear family that I've always wanted, I had to get my ish together, and I had to make sure that I was able to sustain as a father, as the leader of the household. Yes, I do believe the father is the leader of the household. And, you know, my wife's the co-leader. Actually, she's probably my boss, but nonetheless, I'm the guy, if someone breaks in, I'm gonna beat their ass. So that means I'm the leader. Unless my wife has the shotgun, then she's in charge. So once you understand your role in society and your role in your household, that it's easier to find your why.
So how long did it take for you to see your dad sort of denigrate his own physical condition? Like, what age did you become aware that this was going on? And how long did it take for it to be like, oh, wow, dad's like dramatically worse than 3 years ago?
Yeah, I mean, it was in phases. So I think we were living in the high desert. I think I was 12 or 11. And I remember my dad had to get an operation. I didn't know what operation it was. I thought he had a hernia or something. It turns out, like, how do I put this in a non-weird way? Like, he got basically a pump up dick. When I was like 12, he had to go in because, you know, one of the main things of diabetes is blood flow, right? So, yeah. I mean, he lost, and I learned this later because I was like, oh, you have a groin injury. Why are you icing your balls? It's one of those where it's like, but I found out later that it was, he got basically the prosthetic pump, which I'm glad he didn't tell me at the time because that would have weirded me the hell out at 12. And then when I was 16 or 17, one of those ages, I came home, I was training for football. And I came home, and my apartment complex at the time, there were ambulances. And my mom was actually in the mental hospital at the time. And there was ambulances all around the apartment. And believe it or not, my football coach at the time, Coach Scott McCrilla, so my dad called him because Scott McCrilla kind of took me under his wing to help me get recruited for D1 school to get out of my situation. Scott came out. He's like, it's not good, man. So my dad had his first stroke. So I got to see different phases of what bad choices can do. And that's when I decided to dedicate my life to health and fitness. And honestly, I just wanted to get the hell out of my situation. You know, I wanted more. And I wanted better. I wasn't satisfied with being that kid with the temper problems and the anger management issues on the other side of the train tracks. You know, I wanted to switch woods. I wanted to go from Inglewood to Brentwood. And that's literally what I did. So it was an awakening, you know, when you grow up, and the best thing that could ever happen to me is having the adversities that I had, because it makes life much easier. Because the things that'll stress people in Brentwood out, they don't stress me out. Like, unless I'm getting shot at, I'm okay. You know, right. It's fine.
You know, I was actually talking to my girlfriend about this last night because, you know, I grew up in a different situation, better objectively than, you know, when you went through. My parents are still in good health, and, you know, they didn't make obviously poor decisions in front of me, you know, every day of my childhood. Some days perhaps they did, but it wasn't like a recurring thing. You know, that being said, I still have, you know, I had a very different childhood than most people. Yeah. I had to learn from a younger age than others, especially, you know, others who are upper middle class, like my peers, that I couldn't depend on my parents to provide for me in the way I wanted them to. And so I became more calloused, I think, to the outside world because I had to be in order to push through the adversity that is life. And, you know, I was explaining this and a little bit more to my girlfriend last night, and she's like, you know, I just want to hug the little boy that's inside of you. And I thought, that's interesting. That's actually, I've never thought of, you know, the experiences that I had as a child that maybe some psychologists, therapists would think would be, you know, highly traumatic. I don't think about those as impediments that presently weigh me down. I look at them like sand that gets into an oyster that turns it into a pearl. Yes. That without that adversity, I would have no reason to look to build the life for myself that I've built for myself. I would probably be having a corporate job, miserable that I wasn't getting promoted and being worked to death like many other people with corporate jobs. And I think that adversity in the right dose, for the right person with the right mindset, is an irreplicable catalyst for growth.
Well, I think we talked about this when you came over to the house, is my kids have a freaking awesome life.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, if I was a kid, I don't think we had Lululemon back then, but like my daughter goes to Lulu and my son has the Apple Pay and they just go in and they buy stuff. That's a hell of a life. So what sports, and this is the reason why I'm so excited about getting into sports and Legacy at Carbon, which is our youth performance facility in Franklin, is that for kids in Brentwood, like it's a different set of problems because they don't face that adversity that you face in a trailer park or in the hood, Sure. So sports are controlled adversity.
Yes.
And that's why I always had this rule, and I recommend all parents do this. All parents do this. Oh, that's not right. Shut up. All parents need to get their kids in. You have to have a rule for at least a few years. Obviously, my daughter chose soccer, but my kids have all done a combat sport, boxing and wrestling for all of my children, and a team sport, soccer, football. They've played baseball. So when you have sports, you're able, and that's what got me out of my situation. I had an anger problem, so I'd get in fights. And then I learned that in football, you can hit people and not get arrested. And it was amazing. And I found something I was good at. And then I found the weight room and it was game over. It was lights out. I was like, wait a second. So I can take out my aggression here and then I'm good. So what sports do is they give kids this goal. And goal setting is it's an environmental thing. It's a thing that it's not acute, right? When you set goals, when you get in the habit of setting goals, that doesn't stop on this football field. That doesn't stop in the gym. When I say I want to hit 225 on bench press, which is what I said when I was 4 years old. I'm just playing. When I say I want to hit 225 on bench press and I hit that goal, I get the endorphin rush. I get that dopamine rush hitting that goal. So let's say I do the same thing. Like, you know what? I want to be, for me as a father, my main issue is I have issues with trust, with emotional things, with attachment. So, my whole thing is I want to be a more emotional, more coddling father. I want to be able to hug my kids more. So I set a goal to say to my kids, I'm proud of them, and I get that same rush because I've reached a goal. Sure, I didn't win an IFBB Pro card. That's a hell of a dopamine rush, but it's the same micro dose of dopamine when you hit that goal. So whether your goal is winning the Super Bowl for the 17th time like Tom Brady is, or if your goal is to just be a better husband or business person, getting in the habit of setting goals and achieving them, that is why you need to have fitness in your life. Now, I don't think I've ever seen you with your shirt on. So obviously that's something you leverage for yourself and for your brand. And also being fit, you get better jobs, you get paid more, and people treat you better.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And that's something that I noticed when I was a Vanderbilt baseball player is, anytime when I was in a classroom, they'd bring somebody in wearing a suit, making some corporate presentation, I automatically assumed him to be more credible. And I thought, just like you talked about playing competitive sports teaches you to see angles, to get edges over your competition, to realize that, oh, I'm in a situation where this person's trying to put me at a disadvantage because, one-on-one sports in particular, but also team sports are a lot of one-on-one battles where your goal is to get your opponent in a position of no leverage or in a position where you can't move in reaction to you. And when you see the world through this prism, you start to realize that this situation replicates itself many times over, not just on a sports field, but also at business negotiations and employer-employee relations, in citizen government relations. And you start to understand leverage points at a far younger age than people who don't play sports would understand them. And it positions you to be more successful in the real world.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also for finding a mate. Like we could all say, oh no, it doesn't matter. It matters how you look. Look, here's the deal. I'll tell you this. I was actually talking about this. We had a long flight with my good friend Courtney, who came with us. We had a big event at Iron Addicts Gym in Los Angeles. It was amazing, right? And we were talking about how hard it would be. Now, Courtney and I are both married men. And we're talking about, like, a lot of people come to us and say it's hard to really find the ideal mate. It's hard to find a man. It's hard to find a woman. I had a woman come up to me the other day, very strong, very successful woman. I'm talking like multi-millionaire. and she's having trouble finding a strong man, I don't think she needs. Now, again, first of all, you have to find a man who's okay with his. I want my wife to make more money than me. I think that's pimp as hell. Everybody's like, no,
that's what pimps do. Right?
How would you feel if your? I know. How would you feel if your wife made more than you? I'm like, I'd feel awesome. I still would work, but so the thing is, for men to get women, it's pretty simple to put yourself. And I speak as a married man, but I also speak as someone who sees things and who witnesses things and who also experiences things. Really, to find the ideal mate, you got to get past the physical test. Like, no one, if you're hideous and you don't take care of yourself, like, make sure that you, number one, the personal grooming stuff, let's get that out of the way. Cut your fingernails, cut your hair, shave, whatever. Don't look like a slob. But above all else, don't be fat. Like, if you're not fat, I'm not talking about being jacked. I'm not even talking about being lean. Right. I'm talking about not being obese, not being sloppy, not having a gut bigger than your chest. If you simply have a flat body where your chest and your abs are even and your chest isn't even sticking out more, you're in the upper 1% of society.
If you just look like the average person of 1970, you're like extremely good looking today.
I'm just saying, if I was single, I don't think it'd be an issue. And I'm not saying I'm not Brad Pitt. I don't got it like that, but just simply being in shape. Because no matter what, humans are still biologically instinctual beings. So, I'm going to look for someone who, if I procreate with them, or even if you're looking for a one night stand, biologically, you're going to be attracted to someone because procreation or sex, even if it's just recreational, your innate attraction is to find a mate to procreate with. Yeah. Right. Like, even if you're in protection, like, you're oh man, that guy's hot. What makes a dude hot? Well, I think biologically we're looking at their ability to protect and produce awesome offspring. Yeah. So if you are in shape, and I say this all the time, like, being in shape is the ultimate life hack. Like, I can't even embarrass my kids. I go to school. I gave a presentation to an entrepreneur class for seniors. All the kids already knew me. My kids found me in the hall. They weren't like, oh no, it's my dad, I'm going to hide. Like, hey dad, how you doing? And it's not because I'm cool. It's not because I'm hip. It's not because I have money. It's because I'm jacked.
Yeah.
Period. It's because I'm jacked. I'm that bodybuilder dad. I'm the IFBB Pro. I'm the guy with the Instagram. And you know what? I don't even fucking like Instagram. I hate social media. I just got a guy threatening to kill my entire family 2 weeks ago because somebody on the Young Turks channel put a fake account with my name, spelled with a K. This guy thought it was me and he would not listen to reason. Threatened to kill my entire family. Now I have an active police report. I hate social media, but I will stay on there just for my kids because it's kind of cool. Like, oh, you're just pro bodybuilder. Cool. Like, I can't embarrass my kids being jacked, or even just not even being jacked. Like, there are dads who are just in shape, who are just the cool dads because there's only like 3 of them. It's crazy.
They have a degree of control over their own lives, and their body manifests that. And I think that's, maybe a secondary effect of being good looking is not just that you look physically healthy in the eyes of mates or other men. It's that you look like you have control of your life. Like, I tell people when I coach them in career negotiations or job interviews that, your resume, you can write a bunch of bullet points on a piece of paper. Half of them are impossible to verify. Right. Yep. And so how do you verify it as an employer? Is you just look at the person and you're like, does this seem approximately plausible? And
we had a couple interviews on Friday, so hopefully this doesn't give away who it was because she was a knockout. I mean, knockout, not as in attractive, but a knockout, but a knockout as in an interview. Yeah. Came in 15 minutes early, dressed up really nice, in shape, right? With everything was in place. She was clean and she presented herself. She had everything organized. When I walk into gyms, if I see a dust bunny, I lose my shit. Mm-hmm. Even Iron Addicts, which is a hardcore underground gym where people throw weights and use chalk. I was just talking to my wife. We have a cleaning crew come multiple times a week. You have to, if you show organizational skills, if you show pride in what you do, I always tell my kids, like, don't do anything that you won't be proud to show the world. Everything you do everything, every email, unless it's like some shit to my friends, right? If I'm sending a business email, it's on point. If I'm going to an event, I'm going to be dressed for the event. You know, if I'm going to a meeting, obviously I work out of my house and in the gym, you know, I'm not going to wear $100 shirts every time, but I wear my company shirts, make sure I'm shaved, keep my hair cut. You have to do these things and it'll get you ahead in life. You could get all the degrees you want. If you're a fat slob, you're going to be behind the fit guy. I'm sorry. I know. Oh, well, but look at Bill Gates. Bill Gates, there's always going to be an outlier, right? Yeah. But if you're just a normal guy whose parents aren't in the Illuminati, you're probably going to have to do some things. And I'm not saying you have to be fit to be in shape. I'm saying as a guy who's been fat and who's been fit, dude, and also has gotten jobs and deals over fat people just because it's that differentiator. Oh man, if he puts all that time, man, he does this and he has these businesses. So if you're able, I'm not saying you could be a dumbass and get by because you're in shape and you look good, whatever, but there's one thing you can only control what you control. Yeah. I can't control what Biden does. I can't control the government. I can't control the dumb shit that goes on, but I can control what I look like, at least as far as my body, my hair, my nails, shit like that. Yeah. Get that in order and keep your shit clean. Make sure your car is clean. Even if you drive a Pinto, clean it. Right? Like have some pride in everything you do. And if you turn in a report, if you send an email, if you want a job with my companies, you send me an email, hey bro, you hiring? No. But if you send me a thought out resume, here's what I could bring to your company, I'm willing to do what it takes. You might not get the job, but I guarantee you this, you have a better chance of getting hired than the jackass who just said you hiring, bro.
Right. Do you have money to give me, bro?
No, do you pay me, bro? And people think that my businesses are like fitness. They're not. I'm literally like, you've hung up. I'm a logistics guy. Like I own a 3PL company and Tiger Fitness, while we sell nutritional supplements, we're literally a customer service fulfillment company. And I'm more of an R&D guy. Sure. So you look at what we do, it just because I'm swole doesn't mean that I'm at the gym. It's like, bro, you must train all day. I train for 45 minutes. You know, it's like I just go harder than you and I eat better and I have great genetics. Genetics help too.
Right.
Good genetics. Great genetics would be like Phil Heath. He could kick my ass. So.
Right. Well, so one thing that you talked about earlier was dopamine that you get from getting a IFBB card or even the dopamine that you get from congratulating your kids.
Cold shower.
And I felt that, you know, step one in my life and career development was understand that being in shape gives you an advantage over other people and that the corporate world is not like school. In that in school, your teacher will read the paper that you write, think about the thoughts you're putting on paper and give you an approximately fair grade. Where the real world, 90% of the time, your paper doesn't even get graded because people don't have the time. And so if you want to get an A on your paper, not only do you need to write an A paper, but you need to get the teacher to read the paper, right? You need to get the person you're trying to do a deal with to read your email or your direct message. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen. And so once you realize that you need to put a little bit of a Trojan horse out there to get any sort of receptivity, you realize, okay, well, I can't control everything, but I can control that I'm in shape. And if I can control that I'm in shape, I'm going to maximize the amount of opportunities I get. And so as I went through this quest in my 20s working at Google, I spent 6 years working at Google. Fortunately, they had a good gym, pretty functional gym, dumbbells up to 110, which is pretty good for a corporate
shit.
Gym. Yeah, like for a corporate gym, that's right. And so, you know, I was able to train before work every day. My colleagues noticed that I was in a better mood than them. I didn't really think about it like that. I just thought, well, I have training to do before work. And so I'm going to get one win under my belt that I can control before another series of events happen that I can't necessarily control. After many years of this, I came to realize that, okay, well, this is a hard thing and I want to figure out how to make it easier. I don't want to approach fitness in a way that I don't think I could sustain for my entire life. So what am I motivated to do? And I think structuring my training in a way that may not be optimal from a physical transformation standpoint based on how studies say, but is optimal from a dopamine regeneration standpoint.
Yes.
Right. So to me, if you're going to be successful over the long run, you need to understand a dopaminergic flywheel. You need to understand, okay, this thing is going to require effort. How long can I sustain this effort without a dopaminergic reward? Because typically, if you start anything new for your first 3 to 6 months, it's all effort, very minimal dopamine reward. Mm-hmm. Every time you succeed at something, you realize that your dopamine journey goes like this for a while, and then it goes like that. And there's an inflection point. And if you can't get through the lull, you're never going to get to the hockey stick. And once you get to the hockey stick, you realize, oh, I have the energy to repeat that cycle. Mm-hmm. And so training every morning before work and starting businesses and basically taking anything from inception to success requires that you understand these dopamine cycles. Most people have never been extremely successful at anything, so they don't understand the delayed gratification, essentially the dopamine withdrawal of the drive phase that precedes any uptick. So they can't actually get the flywheel going in their life. So they sit around wondering, well, how can I get the motivation to get in shape? I just, it seems like so far off. I can't commit to all these adjustments. I have to go to the gym multiple days a week forever. I can't do it. They just don't know how to start, and they don't know how to start because they haven't been through these dopamine cycles that any successful person has been.
We're all addicted to dopamine. It's a matter of how you fill that addiction and how you chase that, right? Like for some, and that's why you'll never catch me watching porn. I know I took that so far to left field, but porn is instant dopamine.
So what do you do to make sure people don't catch you?
I go in the bathroom. No, but so when you fulfill your dopamine with drug addiction and with porn and with other unhealthy habits, with addiction itself, like, have you ever seen my strange addiction? Mm-hmm. Like they're pulling out their hair, they're eating bleach. That all gives this dopamine response. Mm-hmm. So, we control dopamine. For me, dopamine is coaching, training, wins in business, sex with my wife, things like that. Whereas some people might find their dopamine is from, and I like cold showers once a day. Some might find that their dopamine hit is from drugs or smoking or alcohol. So we all need dopamine. And dopamine is such a fascinating hormone that we're all chasing that dopamine. We're all chasing that dragon. And for me, dopamine, it's like an addiction. So it can be unhealthy where, dude, I've started more companies than I can even friggin' remember because I'm addicted to that rush. Right. I'm addicted to that success. I love nothing's better than closing a big deal like, Quick Trip or HEB or Hy-Vee. And it's a very similar dopaminergic reaction to sex or to porn. So you got to realize like your body's feedback mechanism for accepting these wins, and you can train your body by habit. You can train your body to want more of the positive dopamine responses rather than the negative, which would again be alcohol, drugs, porn, things like that, which are extremely unhealthy. I think we'd all agree that starting a business making $1 million is much more beneficial than watching porn or hiring a prostitute.
Right. It just takes longer. And a lot of people don't realize that it's possible if they can break through in the beginning phases. I think this is actually really interesting because I don't believe that we've talked about this before yet. As two, highly motivated individuals, entrepreneurs, and athletes, we each came to the same conclusion about, what motivates us. How can we put ourselves in a situation where our motivation leads us to do things that enable more success, that beget more success? And I've noticed that every time you talk to successful people, 70% of the things that they think are, revolve around how do I motivate myself? How do I maximize my motivation? How do I create neural pathways that allow me to get over hurdles that have limited me and throttled my ascent at some point in my life or career? And if you really care about winning and you really care about improving yourself, you're going to find an easier way to do the thing that almost everybody else considers hard. And if you do it year after year after year, people will look at you and they'll think, how can Marc, work so tirelessly day after day after day, hit the gym, be a good dad, run businesses, And they don't realize that probably for the last 15 or 20 years, not only have you gone to work with the expectation of winning, but you've gone to work with the expectation of what do I need to do to make winning more attainable, which has resulted in you refining these dopaminergic feedback loops, the way that you cut through stress, the way that you don't let stress debilitate you and force you down a downward spiral, which it does for most people because they never develop the proper coping mechanisms because their eye's not on the prize. Their eyes is on more proximal comfort, right? So, and because they can't shift their focus from proximal comfort to long-term dopaminergic chasing, they constantly stay in cycles where they can't improve. And if anything, they're regressing.
It's all because of this motherfucker right here, man.
Yeah.
They need it instantly. Like every time you pick up your phone, you get a little dopamine hit.
Yep.
Right. So back in the day, people were okay taking their time and doing it, but we get dopamine hits so easy now with phones and with Pornhub and with this and with that, with drugs. It's like, okay, that's great. But if you look at how the brain works, that's really the worst thing you could do for long-term success.
Right.
So this is all stuff I learned after I figured it out. Like the science on dopamine is pretty recent. I mean, it's not shit that I had when I was 80s and 90s, when I was growing up. Anyway, if it was, where would I have found it? Like we didn't have the internet. Like I'd have to go to the library when I was a kid. So I literally have learned about this recently meaning the last 10 to 15 years. And it's just fascinating that I have always looked at the long term, like even with investments. I'm a long-term investor. I'm not one of those guys like, oh my God, everybody's buying AMC stocks. I'm like, no, I got a financial advisor. He's going to do his thing. And I'm not going to take all my money out and go in Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever the hell people are doing now. And I'm definitely, because Elon Musk told me to fucking buy Dogecoin. I'm not doing that. No, I want the long-term growth. I'm more of a safety guy, more of a security guy. I take my risks, but it's usually my controllable. I can't control what Dogecoin does, but I can control my businesses. I can control our allocations of where we spend our investments and, what products we come out with and who we hire and where our expansion is and where our warehouses are. With Dogecoin, I can't predict when Elon's going to say, I was just playing. It's shit. So I think that being able to harness success and things you can control and taking risks, but making sure they're risks that are at your fingertips, that are at your disposal, right? Like every business is a risk. Like we started a youth performance facility out here, right? Like that's a risk, but I can control that by making sure that, we have the best trainers, that making sure that we have the best methodology and making sure that we have the best equipment. So there's things that you can control. So a lot of people in these times with the Twitter attitude, the Twitter mindset, they want things yesterday. They want that drive-through experience with life. They want to be able to go, not even get out of their fucking car and get a Big Mac. No. Go hunt your fucking Big Mac. Go kill that fucking beef. Go skin it, grill it, make your bun. Like to get a good burger, you got to build that shit from scratch. Y'all just going out getting some bullshit Hardee's burger with some shitty quality meat when you could be going to good Connor's Steakhouse and getting a steak burger. But y'all settling for little dollar cheeseburgers because it's quick. But if you want success, it doesn't come overnight. Like people are like, oh my God. A lot of people don't know. I own a lot of stuff and I do a lot of things and I'm worth a lot. But people don't know that because I just keep working. I keep working. I don't concern myself with that. I never did. It's cool to have stuff and my kids are going to live very good lives, but I always just kept working and growing and investing. And it will happen. There are some people who've done very well in the short term and long term, YouTubers and Bitcoiners and whatever, but that's the exception. If you look at people who've done really well, unfortunately, they're the guys who follow the Dave Ramsey type shit. Like they're teachers who make 60 grand a year, put 10% into a retirement fund. And then when they're 55, they're millionaires. That's how most millionaires are made.
Yeah.
It is what it is. Just people who are smart and go for the long term versus the short term.
So how do you take this perspective? Because, not only do you understand the human body, you understand the human mind, and they're obviously connected. When you're training people, whether it's kids or whether it's, you're structuring a program for somebody who wants to lose weight, how do you incorporate psychology and dopamine into it? Because when I look at a lot of training plans, or diet plans in particular, the thing that I think is not properly accounted for is the person going to do it? Like they'll look at, studies say this works, studies say that works, studies say if you do this and that, then this will happen. It's like, okay, that's all great, but nothing matters if the person won't do it. So does it need to be modified in order for the person to do it? Like, how have you found in your approach, how have you tweaked what you try to coach people into doing based on your understanding of how the human mind works?
So my coaching philosophy with kids, couple things. Number one is I explain why we do everything. Like if we're doing a mini hurdle, which is boring, I explain to them why we're doing it. I explain to them it's for ACL injury prevention. I also explain to them it's to absorb shock and to decelerate. So I explain that. Excuse me. With kids, it's pretty easy. Number one is I identify what their goal is. For high school, for example, we train 2 full girls basketball teams. We train a girls lacrosse team. We train a lot of, if I'm training a team, it's a really fucking simple word, state. If I say state, I can get an extra gear. I could be someone to go from 3rd gear to 7th gear, literally Tesla fucking ludicrous mode. If I simply say state, if state doesn't get to them, if I'm coaching Brentwood and Brentwood hates Ravenwood and vice versa, if I'm coaching Brentwood, I say, I wonder what Ravenwood's doing right now. You'll see another gear. If I'm training a person who came to me and their main interest was to live longer, to be with their kids, I just throw that out there. I'll just be like, hey, you got to do this. Or if they're slipping on their diet, hey, you're going to die. Like with adults, you could be a lot more. So like, hey, you know what? Obesity kills. Like, so I'm not afraid to say that. And some adults, how dare you say that? I'm like, well, that's the truth.
Right.
So with kids, you can't obviously say you got to train harder, you're going to die. That'd be really bad. But find what makes someone tick, right? Mm-hmm. For me, it's pretty simple. I just want to win. Like for me, I say, hey, if you don't do this, you're going to lose. I'll be like, like for me, the simple fear of losing is enough. But like my daughter was fortunate enough, like for her, she's already won state. She wants another one, but she's got a ring. So she won state in soccer as a freshman. So for her, it's more, she has my mindset. She just hates losing. So with her, it's like, Cam, you're going to lose. What? I'm not going to lose her. This person's out working you. Great. For a lot of kids, especially in high school, man, and for everybody, find their state. Everybody has a state, right? Everybody has that goal. But every high school kid when I was in high school, man, you said, oh, man, why are you training so hard? Well, I want to win state. It wasn't I want to go D1. That was part of the deal, right? But like, dude, you get an athlete and you're like, hey, I want to win state. Like that's their goal. Every team we coach, they want to win state. So you throw that out there. I'm like, we going state, we going state, we going state. And you just keep getting it in there. And then if state doesn't work, you find out first practice. I always ask them, like, who's your biggest rival? Obviously for Brentwood, it's pretty easy. They hate Ravenwood. The Battle of the Woods, they hate each other. My daughter goes to Ravenwood and we all coach. We coach Brentwood. So for me, it's like, oh, this is great. Like, I want to see some athletes go at it. I want to see some competition. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, this is amazing. But all these kids are making each other better. Like I'll have Ravenwood kids train Brentwood kids, and then they go on the field and they're arch enemies again. So, yeah. I mean, for me, it's about finding that trigger.
Yeah.
Everybody has it. It's called, if you want to get more into it, it's called the why. You need to know what your why is. Why do you go to work every day? Why do you work out every day? What is your why? Is it your kids? Is it to support your mother one day? You ask a lot of NFL football players, their goal was to make enough money to get their mom a house. So I think just finding that why and being able to dig deep and being able to get them to consider that why when they're considering quitting, that's the key to unlocking tremendous potential.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Now, potentially an area where we may have a different approach is getting people to take the first steps that are necessary to get towards their goals. And so, I know the way you approach eating, and I have a sense of the way you'll approach eating with the people that you're working with. And I know how you approach training, and I know how you approach training with the people that you work with. And I'll tell you that it does seem that your approach to diet and fitness would probably be a little bit extreme for me, right?
So it depends. It depends on the person and the situation. For youth athletes, I just tell them to eat, make sure you get your protein in, and then have fun, be a kid, and train. But for my average, actually, I think we're probably the same, unless I'm training a competitor, or for this one guy I train, like my goal was he sends me what he eats, and then I'll make adjustments. Hey, don't put so much dressing on your salad, right? But if I'm training a competitor, it's like, here's your meals. Shut the fuck up.
Right. It's very different. But
it's so different.
But 99% of people who you're going to work with are not, maybe you're training high-end athletes, but 99% of the people that most trainers are going to work with, they're not trying to get on stage as pros. They're not trying to win an Olympic gold. They just want to not be fat so they can date other people. And so I've found that the best way to not be fat isn't to follow necessarily what exercise science or diet science says to do. Like, I don't have any of the people who I work with count calories, right? Because
a lot of the Gen Pop, no, just the serious people, man. I think you and I are pretty much the same. It's food choices, it's lifestyle choices. Like, so I just recommend people eat kava 5 times a day. That's my solution to everything.
And tiger bars in between, right?
Outright bars. Tiger bars were tiger milk bars. Those weren't very good. But yeah, outright bars and kava, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
I agree. I read your shit, and I agree with 99.9% for who you're targeting.
Yeah.
For me, I'd say I'm about 80% Gen Pop, and the other 20% are crazy people. Crazy people meaning that they want to get on stage, emaciate themselves, take years off their life, and win a trophy. And there's nothing wrong with that. And people get like, oh, you're taking my year. But no, I'm just identifying anytime you take your body to that level, you're putting so much stress on your system, whether you're on drugs or not. Don't tell me that's healthy. I don't care if you're natural or you're on steroids. It's still not healthy. If I'm going to live till I'm 75 instead of 90, it's going to be a fucking great 75 years, man. And I don't want to die. Like, I'm not like going out there bungee jumping or anything, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that, I pass on my legacy. My kids are taken care of, and I'm going to kick ass and have fun while I'm at it.
I think part of any athlete's journey or any successful person's journey is understanding where his strengths become weaknesses. I think in the beginning, you figure out how to make your weaknesses become strengths. Oh, everybody thinks I'm weird, but I can actually focus on this one thing for 14 hours at a time and nobody else can. So I'm going to do that and beat them. So that's the hero's journey in the beginning is, I realize I'm different from everybody else, but here's how I can use it to make me extremely good. Yep. And then you get extremely good at one or many things. It tends to be multiple things, because if you can succeed in one area, you learn pathways to succeed in other areas. And then you realize, oh, these strengths that I have that set me apart from other people actually handicap me in these particular circumstances. So let me check myself and figure out how I can stop being my own biggest enemy. Because people who are able to motivate themselves through adversity tend to also be their own biggest enemies, and tend to be acutely aware of when they're being their own biggest enemies. So an example in my life is 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago, I walked into a ladder doing housework. I walked into a ladder at night. Ow, fuck. Like, and I get into bed. My girlfriend's like, do you need me to get you some ice? I'm like, no, don't worry about it. Walk into a ladder. So well, I woke up the next day and my toe is still sensitive to touch. And I'm like, I better get this x-rayed. Right. And 5 years ago, I would have thought I was walking off. It's whatever, it's fine. But I know that in order to be successful, I've had to increase my pain tolerance to such a level where things that require attention just don't come on my radar as this is something you should attend to. So this is legitimately something where I'm like, yeah, I could totally have a broken toe and not realize it. So I'd rather know if I have one than know if I don't. And I can modify my training appropriately. So I drove up the next day, got an x-ray, and they're like, yeah, you broke it in 2 places. I'm like, great. Well, I did the same lifting for the next six weeks or whatever because it didn't hurt, and they told me
your shoulders were jacked.
Right.
You had one jacked leg, the other one was atrophying. You're like, I'm jacked.
Yeah, no, I mean, I kept doing my lower body lifts with the same amount of weight because it wasn't my big toe. So it was my small toe, my index toe, whatever you call that one. So I probably did compensate a little bit to put a little bit less load on my right foot. But for the most part, I could keep doing my lifts with the same weight, even calf raises. But I needed to get it checked out. Otherwise, I was going to put myself in the game and risk, some sort of longer term injury that didn't need to be there because I didn't take the basic precautions that most people in the general population would take.
Yeah. And, we all, and I'm going to add to that, and then I have to hop off in a couple minutes, but I'm going to add to that in saying that if you have strengths, make them even stronger.
Yes.
So while you're bringing up your weaknesses, don't forget that what makes you strong is generally what you're good at. So I'm good at formulating and I'm good at selling. So that doesn't mean I'm just going to not get better and keep evolving and become the best at what I do. It just means that, maybe I need to pay more attention to return on investment. Maybe I need to pay more attention to, to budgeting or whatever my weaknesses are, and continue to make my strengths even stronger. So while I do agree, and I'm sure you feel the same, your strengths are generally what differentiates you. Like if you're really good at math and you're an accountant, that's probably a good thing to get even better at. So that's kind of where I'm at. So make your weaknesses stronger, make your strengths unbeatable.
And that's something that you notice really successful people do. Really successful people don't spend all their effort trying to make sure the other team doesn't score. Really, really successful people try to say, okay, how can I put as many points on the board as I possibly can and not completely blow it on defense? Oh,
you're absolutely correct. That's it. But anyway, I got to actually bounce. So let's do this again.
Yeah, this is great.
Oh man, we can literally be out. It's probably better for views because I could literally stand on here and talk about this shit for another 12 hours.
Let's do it.
I'm down. We could do this weekly. I literally have so much so just to give you just before I sign, I just want to say my wife's usually she's like, everybody loves you, man. You're the guy. We're all so impressed by how smart you are. Usually it's people, but you're you stand out. You are just top of your game.
I appreciate that.
Just like an example of just being an absolute beast in all areas of life. I have nothing but respect for you, brother.
No, I appreciate that, buddy. No, let's do this again. I'm down to do this weekly. This is awesome.
All right, brother. Well, I will, let's set this up soon. I got to jump off, but I really appreciate you, man.
Yeah, this is awesome. Peace out, Mark. If you love that video and you want to check out another one just as cool, click right here. If you want to learn how I stay shredded 24/7, 365 without counting calories, eating sissy salads, only eating delicious food, and not living in the gym, I have a free webinar that you got to check out. Clicking here.